If God himself was sitting in that chair, we would make him say what we wanted him to say. This sinister quote is attributed to a communist interrogator based in Budapest in late 1950. This and other similar reports were perceived by American security services that the communist bloc had developed innovative techniques to extort confessions from their adversaries, or even worse, to wipe out the personalities of unwilling subjects and replace them with new beliefs and convictions to manipulate them as covert sleeper agents. As a result, in 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles authorized the agency's own mind control program, the notorious Project MKUltra. I'm your host David, and today we are going to look at the origins and goals of this extensive, secretive project which involved hypnosis, LSD, magic mushrooms, and mescaline, or as Keith Richards would call it, breakfast. This is the Cold War. If you are looking for the best way to protect yourself and look great doing it, then you need the sponsor of today's video, Ridge Wallet. These wallets from Ridge come with RFID blocking technology to prevent digital pickpockets from scooping up your information. But the best part is how great they look while protecting your information. Ridge wallets don't fold, they don't bulge in your pocket, and they're light with a sleek, modern design. Ridge holds up to 12 cards and has an attached money clip for cash. It even comes in 30 different colors and styles, including my favorite, burnt titanium. Switching from my old wallet to Ridge meant an immediate improvement in comfort and style, but don't just take my word for it. Ridge has over 40,000 5-star reviews. Each wallet comes with a lifetime warranty, and the Ridge team is so confident you'll like it that they'll let you try it for 45 days. If you don't love it, just send it back for a full refund. Look great, support our channel, and get 10% off today by going to ridge.com/thecoldwar and use code TheColdWar. So this story begins in the late 1940s and early 1950s when Western security services developed a serious concern over the communist bloc's capability for mind control. A turning point in the development of such convictions was the trial of the Hungarian cardinal József Mindszenty. A fierce opponent of the local communist government, Mindszenty was arrested on November 26, 1948. In the ensuing trial, he was accused of treason. To the surprise of international observers, Mindszenty meekly confessed to stealing Hungary's crown jewels, to planning a Third World War, and to conspiring to take over the country. The same observers, however, reported how the cardinal displayed a zombie-like demeanor throughout the trial. His gaze appeared particularly lost, which led to speculations of him being manipulated through hypnosis or other mind-wiping techniques. Decades later, Mindszenty revealed the advanced and refined techniques used by his interrogators, truncheons, beatings, and physical torture. But, and there's always a but, the seeds of fear and even paranoia had been sown in the West. Now, let's consider this anecdote. In 1949, Judge Harold Medina presided over the trial of 11 leaders of the US Communist Party charged with conspiracy to overthrow the government. He later admitted that in the courtroom, he avoided eye contact with the public as he feared being entranced by communist hypnotists. And then the fear of communist mental powers escalated during the Korean War. In 1952, Colonel Frank Schwabel and other captured US pilots admitted to dropping bacteriological weapons over civilians in North Korea. 5,000 US POWs signed similar confessions, which prompted military and intelligence officials to consider seriously that the communists had developed some sort of mind control or hypnotic programming. You may actually be familiar with this plot if you've read Richard Condon's 1959 novel, The Manchurian Candidate, or if you've seen the excellent John Frankenheimer movie. The techniques allegedly used by communist puppet masters received a catchy brand name courtesy of journalist Edward Hunter: brainwashing. Already in September and October 1950, Hunter described in his articles how the Chinese and their Soviet allies could wipe out their enemies' personalities and implant them with new thoughts, convictions, and even pre-planned actions. They could achieve this by using techniques developed by the, quote, famous Russian behaviorist Ivan Pavlov. Yeah, the one with the dogs. This technique was called "see now," or to wash the brain in Chinese. Hunter further explored and popularized the concept in his 1951 book, Brainwashing in Red China. And trauma specialist Dr. Joost Meerloo and Dr. William Sargast lent scientific credibility to Hunter's writings, defining the act of brainwashing as a psychic homicide. The Cardinals trials, Hunter's articles, the early reports from Korea, all of these added to a heightened sense of paranoia, which itself was fueled by things like McCarthyism and HUAC, and contributed to the CIA's reaction. The creation of Project MKUltra, formally authorized by Director Allen Dulles in April 1953. The goal of MKUltra was to identify ways to wipe out an individual's personality before implanting a new set of beliefs, behaviors, and directives. The final goal was to control individuals to do someone else's bidding beyond their sense of self-preservation. In other words, to replicate the supposed techniques already mastered by Soviet and Chinese security services. The department in charge was the Office of Scientific Intelligence, which experimented with all possible means to achieve its objective: the use of drugs, medical devices, sensory deprivation, hypnosis, and so on. The program was, of course, top secret, and most of its related documentation had been destroyed in 1973 on orders of then agency director Richard Helms. The program was, however, investigated by the Rockefeller Commission in 1975, the Senate Church Committee in 1976, and by Senator Kennedy in 1975 and 1977. But many of you already know this. So now for some plot twists. The 1977 inquiry brought to light documentation on the little-known predecessors of MKUltra. Apparently, the US military and security services had been experimenting with hypnosis and mind-altering substances long before the communists were alleged to have done so. And the very term and concept of brainwashing had appeared in a CIA memo 9 months before Ed Hunter's first article, which may not be that surprising considering that Hunter had been an agent within the CIA's predecessor, the OSS, and later worked as a propaganda specialist for the agency itself. It appears that the early work on psychoactive substances and hypnosis may have contributed to the development of the idea of brainwashing. This concept made it to the public consciousness thanks to Hunter and was used as a lens to interpret the strange behavior displayed by the captives of communist regimes. And the escalation of fear led new CIA leadership to invest heavily in similar techniques in a twisted, self-referential process worthy of an M.C. Escher illustration enjoyed while on psychotropic drugs. Okay, let's take a look at these experiments. On the 15th of August of 1977, CIA Director of Security Robert W. Gambino was informed of the discovery of 18 boxes within the agency's archives, which related to the CIA's drug-related activities. It emerged that the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, had already carried out experiments on psychoactive drugs, especially those believed to soften up POWs during their interrogation. Since 1943, US military personnel voluntarily subjected themselves to experiments involving mescaline, cannabis indica, and its main component, tetrahydrocannabinol acetate. That's a mouthful. The declassified memos also mentioned that the OSS performed experiments on at least one unwitting subject described as a, quote, notorious New York gangster. In 1946, the OSS revamped their efforts on a further 88 volunteers, all American citizens. They were administered benzedrine, caffeine, scopolamine, and, more prosaically, alcohol. Benzedrine, or amphetamine sulfate, can help to increase focus and energy, but its abuse can lead to hypertension, psychosis, and sudden stroke. As per scopolamine, it is currently prescribed to prevent nausea and vomiting, but also ranks acute psychosis as a side effect. Now, the OSS was not the only agency dealing with interrogation techniques and mescaline trips. Shortly after the end of World War II, a US naval technical mission found out about the experiments conducted by Dr. Kurt Plotner at the Dachau concentration camp over the course of 1942. Plotner was the head of the Third Reich's Institute for Military and Scientific Research and was seeking to develop the perfect interrogation technique. His methods relied on a combination of hypnosis and mescaline, which he tested on 30 prisoners. The Naval Missions Report was the catalyst for Project Chatter, kicked off in autumn of 1947 and shut down in 1953. It was aimed at identifying truth serums or other drugs which could be used to interrogate enemy agents or to recruit new operatives. The head of the project was Naval Lieutenant and Yale graduate Dr. Charles Savage, who conducted the experiments at the Naval Institute in Bethesda, Maryland. His first tests involved using high doses of mescaline, but the results were disappointing. Mescaline is known to induce hallucinations, in which geometric colored shapes are prominent, but not necessarily to induce a full confession. Savage's next step was to move to LSD, which he administered to 15 severely depressed military personnel and 5 healthy patients. In his published findings, Savage admitted that besides generating dreamlike hallucinations and increased heart rate, the drug did not show the intended effect. He also noted that, quote, LSD appears to have no specific therapeutic advantage in depression, end quote, whilst engendering schizophrenic reactions in certain patients. Okay, so the most substantial find in the stash of papers uncovered by Gambino was the existence of a secret project initiated in early 1950, codenamed Bluebird. In August of 1951, it was renamed Artichoke. According to a declassified memo, Bluebird and Artichoke sought to address, among others, the following questions. Can we condition by means of post-hypnotic suggestion agency operatives so that they do not divulge any secrets nor commit acts on behalf of an enemy? Can we get unwilling subjects to perform an act for our benefit? Can we influence individuals by post-hypnotic control so that they perform actions contrary to their basic moral principles, for example, crashing a plane or wrecking a train? Can we extract details and intelligence from unwilling prisoners by using hypnosis or chemical compounds? And more in general, can we alter someone's personality by the same means? It seems that the agency invested a great deal of effort in the study of hypnosis, especially between 1951 to 1954. A report from that year stresses the potential of hypnotism as an offensive and defensive aid, without clarifying how exactly it was to fill that role. But, and there's always a but, it does specify that extensive tests carried out on agency volunteers did not yield any result warranting an operational use. Okay, so the second field of research, the pharmacological one, appeared to have been explored more extensively. The Artichoke researchers kept samples of numerous prescription drugs such as the antipsychotic Roxetine, the stimulant Methadone, the tranquilizer Thorazine, and several treatments for Parkinson's disease still in the experimental stage. But what is more interesting is the determination to test illegal drugs, as well as, shall we say, well, natural remedies. An Artichoke memo of November 1952 outlines how the chief of the technical branch of the SRS, the Security Research Staff, sought authorization for a journey to Mexico. His aim was to contact a local botanist to experiment firsthand with Rhycnosia pyramidalis, a psychoactive plant, and the Panoleus campanatalis, a hallucinogenic mushroom. I hope he enjoyed the trip. Or trips. Which, at least he took voluntarily. The Gambino inquest found some concerning aspects to Artichoke. For example, many agency employees who acted as test subjects had not been asked to sign waivers of liability. This led to suspicion that the men running the tests did not provide informed consent to those taking the tests, and they were not fully aware of the side effects or long-lasting consequences of taking such drugs. Now, finally, there is a mention of a third field of research, surgical procedures. In particular, prefrontal lobotomy was considered as a technique, although it's not clear what the procedure hoped to achieve. The procedure itself consisted of the resection of nerve pathways in the frontal lobe of the brain. It was a popular remedy at the time to address mental illnesses, such as schizophrenia and bipolar disorders, but fell into disuse in the late 1950s due to its side effects: apathy, passivity, loss of concentration, and, well, death. Apparently, no further efforts were devoted to researching lobotomy. However, Michael J. Malinick, the CIA's acting deputy director for administration, warned Gambino that public knowledge of these plans may have resulted in unfavorable publicity. Malinick proceeded to inform his boss that the stash of files contained a list of individuals working for government agencies or in the scientific community who were consulted on artichoke matters. Many of these people would be later given research contracts under Artichoke's successor, MK Ultra. Malinick's report considers addressing the problem of whether additional institutions will need to be informed of an unwitting association with the CIA. And that was one of the key characteristics of MK Ultra: unwitting cooperation of medical researchers who received grants by the Human Ecology Fund, a covert front for the CIA. So, with this background now established, we are going to cover MK Ultra in more detail in a future video, including the work of the program's head, chemist Dr. Sidney J. Gottlieb, as well as the experiments of psychiatrist Donald Ewan Cameron. The story of MK Ultra is definitely one of the more sordid tales of the Cold War in the United States, where a government agency whose purpose was to defend the nation from foreign threats used its own unknowing citizens to conduct tests and experiments. But MK Ultra didn't just appear on its own, it was the natural continuation and escalation of multiple series of other projects that had been conducted. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and to make sure you don't miss all of our future episodes, please make sure you subscribe to our channel, and when I count to 0, you will feel the urge to subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button and press that bell. All memory of this event will disappear at the count of 3, 2, 1, 0. Financial support would be greatly appreciated via www.patreon.com/thecoldwar or through YouTube membership. This is the Cold War channel, and don't forget, the trouble with the Cold War is that it doesn't take long before it becomes heated.